The mercenary station floated in deep space like a small moon made of metal and lights. Ships from 100 different worlds docked there every day. Inside, the air smelled like engine fuel and alien sweat. Commander Zethrak walked through the crowded halls with his 4 arms crossed behind his back. His scales were dark purple, a sign of his Vraxian heritage. Other mercenaries moved out of his way. Everyone knew the Vraxian clause. They had fought in 60 systems and never lost a contract. The meeting room was cold and dim. Zethrak sat across from a representative of the Celestial Commerce Coalition. The alien was small and gray, with too many eyes. It pushed a datapad across the table. "The contract is simple," the representative said. "Human soldiers are interfering with our mining operation on Tanis 4. We need them removed. Permanently." Zethrak looked at the information. 12 humans. Just 12. His company had 200 trained warriors. He almost laughed. "How much are you offering?" he asked. The number that appeared on the screen made his eyes widen. It was enough to buy a small fleet. For 12 humans? Something felt wrong. "Why so much?" Zethrak asked. The representative's many eyes blinked in sequence. "Other companies have declined. We need this handled quickly." Zethrak tapped his clawed finger on the table. "Other companies declined?" That was unusual. But the money was too good to ignore. His warriors needed payment. Their ships needed repairs. This would solve all their problems. "We accept," he said. As he left the meeting room, an old Caltharian mercenary stopped him in the hallway. The creature's fur was gray with age, and scars covered his face. "You took the human contract," the old warrior said. It was not a question. "Yes." "Easy money," Zethrak replied. The Caltharian's eyes grew sad. "I tried to fight human special forces once. 40 years ago. I had a company of 300. Only 20 of us survived. Interni 2000. And the Perding port." Zethrak snorted. "Times have changed, old one. Your warriors were probably weak." "No," the Caltharian said quietly. "We were not weak. The humans were just different. They fight like nothing else in the galaxy. Turn down this contract. The money is not worth it." Oat. But Zethrak was already walking away. The old fool was probably going senile. Humans were just another species. Soft creatures from a backwater planet. They had only joined the galactic community 200 years ago. What could they possibly do against the Vraxian clause? Back on his ship, Zethrak called his officers together. They studied the intelligence files on the human team. Captain Jake Morrison was the leader. He had served for 15 years. There was a demolitions expert named Ben Palmer, a communications specialist named Amy Chen, and a sniper named Kyle Brooks. The medic was Maria Santos. 7 others completed the team. "They have no heavy weapons," one officer noted. "Just personal arms and basic equipment. Their base is in the mountains," another said. "We can surround it easily." Zethrak looked at the images of the humans. They looked so weak. No scales, no natural armor, no claws, just soft skin and small teeth. They were smaller than Vraxians. They came from a world with weak gravity. "We attack at night," Zethrak commanded. "Full force. Thermal camouflage and shield generators. We end this quickly and collect our payment." His warriors roared in agreement. They cleaned their weapons and prepared their armor. The ships left the station and jumped to hyperspace. The journey to Tanis 4 would take 3 days. During the flight, Zethrak read more about humans. Their planet, Earth, was classified as a standard world. They breathed oxygen. They needed water. They seemed completely ordinary. The only interesting fact was that humans had fought several wars among themselves before joining the galactic community, but many species had done that. What Zethrak did not read was the classified section of the human military files. Those files were locked behind encryption that most aliens could not break. Those files explained what human special forces really were. They told the truth about Earth and why it was not a standard world at all. They contained warnings from every alien military that had ever encountered human special operators. But Zethrak did not see those files. He only saw what the basic database showed him. And the basic database made humans look weak and unimpressive. The ships dropped out of hyperspace above Tanis 4. The planet was mostly rock and ice with thin atmosphere. The human base was a cluster of prefabricated buildings in a mountain valley. Sensors showed exactly 12 life signs inside. "Deploy all forces," Zethrak ordered. "Surround the base. Use thermal camouflage. When everyone is in position, we attack together." 200 Vraxian warriors descended in drop pods. They landed silently in the darkness. Their armor made them nearly invisible. Their shields could stop most weapons. They moved into position around the human base, like a tightening noose. Zethrak waited in his command ship, watching through the helmet cameras of his warriors. Everything was going perfectly. The humans had no idea they were surrounded. This would be over in minutes. "All units in position, Commander," his second officer reported. "Begin the attack," Zethrak said. The Vraxian warriors opened fire. The night sky lit up with energy weapons. Blue and green bolts slammed into the human buildings. The Vraxians advanced from all sides, their shields glowing as they deflected the few return shots. Standard military tactics called for the defenders to fortify their position and call for help. The Vraxians expected the humans to do exactly that. The humans did not do that. Within 30 seconds of the attack beginning, every light in the human base went dark. The Vraxians switched to thermal imaging. They saw the heat signatures of the humans moving. But something was wrong. The signatures were splitting up and moving toward the exits, not deeper into the base for protection. "They are abandoning their position," one Vraxian officer reported. "Should we pursue?" "Of course," Zethrak snapped. "Do not let them escape." The first group of Vraxians who entered the base died instantly. Ben Palmer had rigged the main building with explosives made from mining equipment. The blast killed 12 warriors and wounded 20 more. The explosion also collapsed part of the mountain, blocking the main approach route. "Regroup," Zethrak ordered. "Use the side valleys." The Vraxians split into 3 groups and moved around the collapsed area. Their thermal imaging showed human heat signatures in the rocks above them. The warriors raised their weapons and fired at the positions. But the heat signatures were just flares that Amy Chen had planted. While the Vraxians wasted ammunition shooting at fake targets, Kyle Brooks opened fire from a completely different position. His rifle was primitive by galactic standards, using chemical propellants instead of energy. But it was silent and deadly accurate. 3 Vraxian commanders fell with holes through their helmets before anyone realized where the shots were coming from. The Vraxian warriors scattered for cover. Their shields worked well against energy weapons, but the human bullets punched through them like paper. The shields were designed wrong for this kind of threat. "Find that shooter," an officer screamed. Kyle fired twice more and disappeared into the rocks. The Vraxians fired at his last position, turning the stone into molten slag. But Kyle was already 300 meters away, setting up for his next shot. Jake Morrison led half the human team in a flanking maneuver. While the Vraxians focused on Kyle's position, the humans circled behind them. They moved through terrain that should have been impossible to cross in the dark. They climbed cliffs, crossed ice fields, and navigated narrow passes without making a sound. Maria Santos moved with them, her medical pack on her back. She was not just a medic. Like all human Special Forces members, she was a complete warrior who happened to have medical training. She carried the same weapons as everyone else and had killed just as many enemies. The Vraxians finally located Kyle's new position and sent 50 warriors to eliminate him. They climbed the rocks carefully, using their shields and superior numbers. When they reached the top, they found Kyle's rifle lying on the ground, still warm. He was gone. The explosion that killed them came from below. Kyle had led them onto a ledge that Ben Palmer had already rigged with charges. 30 Vraxians fell to their deaths. The others retreated in panic. "How many have we lost?" Zethrak demanded from his ship. 63 dead, 42 wounded, his officer reported. "The humans are using guerrilla tactics. They know this terrain perfectly." 63 warriors against 12 humans. In less than 2 hours, Zethrak felt something he had not experienced in years. Fear. "Pull back to the landing zone," he ordered. "We need to reassess." But pulling back was not simple. The Vraxians were spread across the mountains, and the humans were between them and safety. Jake Morrison had predicted the retreat order. His team moved into ambush positions along every route back to the landing zone. Amy Chen had hacked into the Vraxian communication network using a damaged helmet from one of the dead warriors. She fed false information through their channels, sending groups of Vraxians into traps or into each other. 2 Vraxian squads exchanged fire for 5 minutes before realizing they were shooting at their own people. By the time the surviving Vraxians reached their landing zone, they had lost 98 warriors, almost half their force. The 12 humans had suffered 0 casualties. One had a minor wound from shrapnel, which Maria had already treated. Zethrak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. This was impossible. His warriors were professionals. They had better equipment, better armor, better shields. They had overwhelming numbers. How were they losing? He pulled up the combat footage from his warriors' helmet cameras. What he saw made his blood run cold. The humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They did not follow predictable patterns. Every time the Vraxians adapted to one tactic, the humans switched to something completely different. When the Vraxians bunched together for mutual support, the humans used explosives. When they spread out to avoid explosives, the humans picked them off individually. When they tried to use their technology advantage, the humans somehow turned it against them. And the speed. The humans moved so fast. They ran across terrain that should have been impossible. They climbed and jumped and crawled through spaces that should have been too small. Their bodies were more flexible and adaptable than any Vraxian. Zethrak watched footage of Jake Morrison engaging 3 Vraxians in close combat. The human moved like water, dodging strikes that should have killed him, using the alien's own momentum against them. He took a weapon from one Vraxian and used it to kill the other 2, then disappeared into the darkness before reinforcements arrived. "Commander," his second officer said quietly, "we should withdraw. This is not a battle we can win." Zethrak wanted to argue, but he could not find the words. Everything in his training told him that numbers and technology determined victory. But those rules did not seem to apply to these humans. The Vraxian warriors sat in their camp, traumatized and confused. They had set up defensive barriers and heavy weapons around their landing zone. Scouts reported that the humans had withdrawn to positions in the mountains, watching, but not attacking. The night passed slowly, every sound making the warriors jump. Zethrak spent the dark hours reviewing every piece of data he could find about human military forces. The basic databases told him nothing useful. Finally, he contacted an information broker he knew, a Quellian named Vix, who specialized in military intelligence. "I need everything you have on human special forces," Zethrak said over the encrypted channel. There was a long pause. "You took a contract against them," Vix said. It was not a question. "Yes. How much for the information? For you? Nothing. Consider it a gift. You are going to need it." The files Vix sent were massive. Zethrak started reading and could not stop. The truth about humans unfolded before his eyes like a nightmare. Earth was not a standard world. It was classified by xenobiologists as a Class 12 death world. The gravity was higher than the galactic average. The atmosphere had more oxygen, making everything burn hotter and faster. The planet was covered in predators, diseases, and natural disasters. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, animals that could kill a human in seconds. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters. On Earth, They had chased prey for hours, or even days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans could regulate their body temperature through sweating, allowing them to run in heat that would kill most species. Their bodies could function on minimal water and food for extended periods, but the physical advantages were only part of the story. The psychological profile was what truly terrified Zethrak. Humans had a trait that xenopsychologists called adversarial resilience. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not give up. They became more creative, more dangerous, more determined. Stress and fear did not break them. It sharpened them. Their special forces selection processes were brutal. Candidates were pushed to the edge of death multiple times. They were starved, frozen, drowned, and tortured as part of training. Only the most mentally and physically capable individuals survived. The graduation rate was less than 20%, and these were the humans that Zethrak was fighting. The files contained after-action reports from other mercenary companies. A draconian unit had lost 70% of their force to 6 human operators on Kepler Station. The humans had fought for 19 hours straight, adapting to zero-gravity combat faster than species that evolved in space. A Threscan war party encountered human naval special operators on an ice world. The humans had swum through freezing water for 6 kilometers, emerged, and immediately engaged in combat, while their body temperature was low enough to kill most species. They won. The most disturbing reports came from mercenary companies that had tried to use hostages or intimidation against human special forces. The humans had a concept they called, "do not negotiate with terrorists." If civilians were taken hostage, the human operators would assault the position anyway, accepting civilian casualties rather than surrender. This behavior made no sense to most alien species, but it was standard human military doctrine. "Commander," his communications officer interrupted. "We are receiving a transmission from the humans." "Put it through," Zethrak said. Captain Jake Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but calm. His eyes were the color of Earth's sky, blue like ice. "Commander Zethrak," Jake said, "I am offering you one chance to withdraw. Leave this planet now, and we will not pursue. Stay, and we will kill every one of your warriors." Zethrak's pride wanted him to refuse, but he had read the files. He knew what would happen if he stayed. Still, he had to ask. "You are only 12, Zethrak said. "We are still over 100. Jake smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "Yeah. We are only 12. That means you might have a chance if you leave now. Stay, and you will learn why mercenary companies across the galaxy refuse contracts against human special forces. The payment keeps going up, because nobody wants to fight us. Not because we are the strongest or have the best technology, but because we do not quit, we do not surrender, and we will use every advantage we can find. We have been training for this since we were children. This is what we do." Zethrak looked at the human. Jake was smaller than a Vraxian, physically weaker, with no natural weapons. But the confidence in his eyes was absolute. He believed every word he was saying. "I need to discuss this with my officers," Zethrak said. "You have 2 hours," Jake replied. "After that, we assume you have chosen to stay, and we will act accordingly." The transmission ended. Zethrak called his officers together and shared what he had learned. They read the reports in silence. The evidence was overwhelming. "We cannot win this," his second officer finally said. "Even if we kill all 12 of them, we will lose most of our warriors doing it. And the human government will send more. They do not abandon their special forces. They will send an entire fleet to recover bodies if they have to." Another officer spoke up. "If we withdraw, our reputation will be destroyed. No one will hire us again. If we stay, we will be destroyed." Zethrak replied, "I would rather lose contracts than lose my warriors. We were given incomplete intelligence. This contract was a trap from the beginning." The vote was unanimous. The Vraxian clause would withdraw. Zethrak composed a message to the Celestial Commerce Coalition, informing them that the contract was void due to fraudulent information. They could sue if they wanted. He did not care anymore. Then he opened a channel to Captain Morrison. "We accept your terms," Zethrak said. "We will withdraw immediately. But I want to know something first. Why did you give us this chance? You could have killed us all." Jake was quiet for a moment. "Because you are smart enough to quit when you are beaten. That is rare. Most mercenaries keep fighting until we have to kill them all. I would rather you spread the word about what happens when people fight us. Dead men cannot tell stories." "Dead men. I will tell everyone," Zethrak promised. The Vraxian ships left Tanis 4 within the hour. The warriors loaded their dead and wounded and departed without looking back. Zethrak sat in his command chair and began writing his report. It would be the most important document he ever produced. The mercenary networks that connected soldiers of fortune across the galaxy operated on reputation and information. When one company learned something important, they shared it. This kept everyone alive and prevented the same mistakes from happening repeatedly. Zethrak's report was brutally honest. He described every failure, every death, and every moment of terror his warriors had experienced. He included the combat footage and the intelligence files that Vix had sent him. He wanted every mercenary in the galaxy to understand what fighting human special forces really meant. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of mercenary commanders contacted him. Some accused him of cowardice, but many more thanked him for the information and shared their own stories. A Peltharian company had lost 60 warriors to a 4-person human team on Europa Station. The humans had fought for 18 hours without rest. When the Peltharians finally cornered them, the humans had hijacked a supply ship and escaped while simultaneously destroying the station's power grid. A Novian warfleet had tried to raid a human colony world. The human military had responded with special operations teams that infiltrated the Novian ships. Instead of fighting the entire crew, the humans sabotaged the life support systems and navigation computers. The Novian fleet was dead in space within hours, and the humans escaped without losing a single operator. The pattern was always the same. Human special forces teams were small, usually between 4 and 20 operators. They had basic equipment compared to most alien technology, but they won anyway, through creativity, adaptability, and sheer determination. One report described a human psychological trait called spite. When cornered or outmatched, humans did not surrender. They became more dangerous. They would sacrifice themselves to ensure mission success or to take as many enemies with them as possible. This behavior was irrational by most species standards, but it was standard for humans. Zethrak also learned about the different types of human special forces. There were Army Rangers, Navy operators, Air Force Special Tactics teams, and dozens of others. Each had different specialties, but all shared the same core traits. They were volunteers who had survived brutal selection processes. They trained constantly. They operated with minimal supervision. They adapted faster than any other military force in the galaxy. The reports explained that human special forces selection was designed to find individuals who could think independently under extreme stress. The training simulated combat, capture, torture, starvation, and isolation. Candidates were pushed past their breaking points to see how they would react. The ones who graduated were psychological outliers, even among humans. One xenopsychology report stated that human special forces operators had abnormally high levels of a neurotransmitter called dopamine when under stress. This meant that dangerous situations actually made them perform better instead of worse. They were literally addicted to combat. Zethrak found videos of human special forces training. He watched candidates carry heavy boats on their heads for hours, swim in freezing water until their bodies shut down, and navigate through forests while being hunted by instructors. The dropout rate was staggering. For some human special forces units, only 10% of candidates graduated. But the ones who did graduate were weapons in human form. The most disturbing video showed a human Special Forces operator demonstrating escape and evasion techniques. The human was tied to a chair, with advanced restraints that should have been impossible to escape from. Within 3 minutes, the human had freed himself, using a piece of wire hidden in his clothing. He explained that all human Special Forces operators were trained to hide tools on their bodies and in their equipment. They were never truly unarmed. Zethrak also learned about human military culture. Humans had a concept called "leave no man behind." If a human soldier was killed or captured, their military would send forces to recover them. Always. This was not negotiable. Mercenaries who killed human soldiers could expect retaliation from the full might of the human military. There were reports of human fleets traveling across the galaxy to recover the bodies of fallen operators. Entire planets had been blockaded because they refused to return human remains. The human government did not care about the cost. They would spend billions to bring their people home. This was why the Celestial Commerce Coalition had offered so much money for the contract. They knew that killing the human Special Forces team would bring massive retaliation. They wanted mercenaries to take the blame and face the consequences. Zethrak felt anger at being manipulated, but also relief that he had withdrawn. Fighting the humans was bad enough. Having the human military hunt him afterward would have been a death sentence. He compiled all of this information into his report and distributed it across the mercenary networks. Within days, it had been read by thousands of mercenary commanders. The warnings were clear. Avoid contracts against human Special Forces. The payment is never worth it. Some mercenaries dismissed the report. They claimed Zethrak was exaggerating or making excuses for his failure. But the smart ones listened. The contracts against human Special Forces remained unclaimed. The payment amounts continued to increase, but nobody wanted the jobs. Zethrak received a message from the old Caltharian mercenary he had met on the station. The message was simple. "I tried to warn you. At least you were smart enough to survive. Many are not." 3 weeks after the Vraxians withdrew from Tanis IV, Zethrak received an unexpected message. It was from Captain Jake Morrison. "Commander Zethrak, I have a proposition for you. Meet me on neutral ground. Come alone. I promise your safety." Zethrak was suspicious, but he was also curious. He agreed to meet at a trading station in the Outer Rim. He brought his personal guard but left them on his ship as requested. Jake was waiting in a quiet bar. He was wearing civilian clothes, not military gear. 2 other humans sat at a nearby table, a man and a woman. They were clearly soldiers, despite the casual clothing. They watched everything with alert eyes. "Thank you for coming," Jake said as Zethrak sat down. "I read your report. It has been circulating in mercenary circles. I assume you are angry that I revealed information about human military capabilities," Zethrak said. Jake shook his head. "No. You did us a favor. Every mercenary who reads that report and decides not to fight us is someone we do not have to kill. It saves lives on both sides." Zethrak was confused. "Then why did you want to meet?" "Because you are smart," Jake said. "You figured out that fighting us was a bad idea, and you withdrew. That shows intelligence and strategic thinking. I wanted to offer you some additional information that is not in your report." Jake pulled out a datapad and pushed it across the table. Zethrak looked at it and saw files marked with human military seals. "This is classified intelligence about human Special Forces doctrine and capabilities," Jake explained. "I am giving it to you to share with the mercenary networks. I want every mercenary commander in the galaxy to understand what they are up against if they take contracts against us." "Why?" Zethrak asked. Jake smiled. "Because they are not really secrets. Everything in those files is information that anyone can learn if they fight us and survive, but most do not survive. So instead of letting mercenaries learn these lessons the hard way, I am telling them directly. Maybe it will prevent unnecessary deaths." Zethrak opened the files and started reading. They contained detailed information about human military equipment, tactics, and training methods. There were explanations of concepts like mission-type tactics, where small units were given objectives but allowed to determine their own methods. There were descriptions of human stress inoculation training that prepared operators for combat. One file explained the human concept of violence of action. When humans attacked, they did it with overwhelming aggression and speed. They believed that decisive action in the first moments of combat could determine the entire outcome. This was why they seemed so fearless. They were trained to attack problems instead of reacting to them. Another file described human equipment philosophy. Humans did not rely on advanced technology because technology could fail. They preferred simple, reliable tools that worked in any environment. A human rifle was less advanced than most alien weapons, but it would function in extreme heat, extreme cold, underwater, and in space. It required minimal maintenance and could be repaired with basic tools. "You want mercenaries to know all of this?" Zethrak asked. "Yes," Jake said, "because even knowing all of this, most mercenaries still will not be able to beat us. The real advantage is not our equipment or our tactics. It is our mindset. You cannot train an alien to think like a human special forces operator unless they went through the same childhood, the same culture, and the same selection process that we did." Kyle Brooks, the sniper, spoke up from the nearby table. "We have been doing this since we were kids. Every human child plays games that simulate combat. We climb trees, we run races, we compete constantly. Then, the ones who join the military compete even harder. Then the ones who try for special forces compete against the best of the best. By the time someone graduates from our selection courses, they have spent their entire lives preparing for combat." Maria Santos, the medic, added, "And we do not stop training. Even when we are not deployed, we are practicing. Shooting, running, climbing, swimming, fighting. We simulate combat constantly. Some of us have done thousands of hours of training before we see our first real battle." "I am any," Jake nodded. "So, you can share all of this information with mercenary networks. It might help them understand why taking contracts against us is a bad idea. And if they still decide to fight us anyway, at least they will know what they are getting into." Zethrak was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked the question that had been haunting him since Tanis 4. "Why do you do this? Special forces operations are dangerous. The pay is not better than regular military service. You could die at any moment. Why choose this life?" One. The three humans looked at each other. Ben Palmer, the demolitions expert, walked over from his position by the door. "Because we are good at it," Ben said simply. "And because if we do not do it, someone else will have to. Someone who might not be as good. Our job is to handle the impossible missions so that regular soldiers do not have to die trying," Jake added. "Human military culture values sacrifice for the greater good. We volunteer for this because we believe in protecting others. Every mission we complete is one less threat to our people. That is reason enough." Zethrak understood. It was a warrior's code, not so different from what the Vraxians believed. But humans took it to an extreme level that most species could not match. "I will share this information," Zethrak promised. "And I will make sure every mercenary knows that fighting human special forces is suicide." "Thank you," Jake said. "And one more thing. If you ever need work that does not involve fighting humans, contact me. We sometimes need transportation or security for non-combat operations. We pay well, and we do not betray our contractors." Zethrak left the meeting with the data pad. He returned to his ship and immediately started distributing the new information across mercenary networks. The response was even bigger than before. Mercenary commanders read the files and spread the word. Within months, the entire mercenary community knew the truth about human special forces. Contracts against human operators appeared regularly, with payment amounts that increased every month, but the contracts remained unclaimed. No mercenary company was willing to take them. The human government noticed this trend. They realized that Zethrak's reports had created an unofficial protection for their special forces teams. Human operators could work in hostile territory with less worry about mercenary attacks. The humans did not stop the information from spreading. In fact, they quietly encouraged it. 2 years later, Zethrak received word that a new contract had appeared. A criminal syndicate was offering an enormous payment for anyone who could kill or capture a human special forces team. The amount was enough to buy a fleet of warships. The contract remained unclaimed for 6 months. Finally, a young and arrogant mercenary company accepted it. They were Corvan warriors, a species known for their strength and aggression. They had never fought humans before and did not believe the warnings. 3 weeks later, the Corvan company was destroyed. Out of 150 warriors, only 12 survived. They had fought against a 6-person human team and lost completely. The survivors spread their own warnings, adding to the legend. The human special forces operators involved in that fight were led by none other than Jake Morrison. His team had suffered one injury, a minor wound that Maria Santos treated in the field. Zethrak heard about the battle and was not surprised. He added the Corvan after-action reports to his collection. The evidence kept growing. Fighting human special forces was simply not worth any amount of money. On Tanis 4, the human special forces team continued their mission. They disrupted criminal operations, gathered intelligence, and protected human interests. They worked quietly and efficiently, knowing that their reputation now preceded them. Most enemies withdrew rather than face them. Jake Morrison sat in the prefabricated building that served as their base. His team was cleaning weapons and preparing for the next mission. Amy Chen was monitoring communications. Ben Palmer was organizing their explosives inventory. Kyle Brooks was maintaining his rifle. Maria Santos was updating their medical supplies. "We have 3 new threats in the sector," Amy reported. "Criminal organizations running illegal mining operations. They know we are here." "Amy, will they fight us?" Maria asked. Amy checked the intelligence reports. "No. They are withdrawing their operations. They do not want to risk it." Ben grinned. "Just another day at work," Jake nodded. That was the goal. After all, win without fighting. Let the reputation do the work. It saved lives and completed missions. It was the most efficient kind of warfare. In mercenary bars and stations across the galaxy, the same conversation happened over and over. New mercenaries asked about the contracts against human special forces. The payment was incredible. Why would nobody take them? And the experienced mercenaries would share the stories. The Vraxians, who lost half their force to 12 humans. The Peltharians, who fought for 18 hours and lost. The Corvans, who thought they were strong enough and learned otherwise. "Do not fight human special forces," the veterans would say. "No payment is worth it. They will kill you, and they will make it look easy. Find other work. Live to fight another day." And the smart mercenaries listened. The contracts remained unclaimed. The payments kept increasing. But nobody was stupid enough to accept them anymore. The legend of human special forces grew with each passing year. They became the boogeyman of the mercenary world. The operators that could not be beaten, no matter the odds. The warriors who fought beyond logic and won anyway. And somewhere on a distant planet, a human special forces team prepared for their next mission, knowing that their greatest weapon was not their guns or their training. It was the fear they inspired in their enemies. The fear that made smart opponents choose to run rather than fight. That fear kept them alive and let them complete impossible missions with minimal casualties. It was the perfect result of warfare. Victory through reputation alone. Just another day for human special forces.